Let's view stream. Testing 1, 2. All right. What is going on today? Let me just zoom out of here. And all right. And okay. Oh, okay. I didn't change the title, but oh well. Anyway, so it's going to be on there. I'll have to change the title. What's going on, guys? Donnie Rouse here, and today we are going to talk about all of those big dreams you have for your life and how to bring them to fruition. I promise you it is a lot easier than you think. But in application, it might come across as a little bit more challenging because it's going to require you to access a different part of yourself. So this is called definiteness of purpose, or as I'm going to title this is Espresso Desires, because the story I'm about to tell you is about my journey to creating my espresso blend, which is actually in the process of happening right now, but how I set the goal and how I started taking definite action towards that purpose is where the real learning is. So before we go any further, I want you to ask yourself, what is a goal that you have? What is a desire that you have that maybe it eluded you in the past? And then the next question I want you to ask yourself is, what was it that caused you to not follow through with that? And write down that answer. What I'm about to tell you is about definite purpose. There's 3 things that I identified that allowed me to follow through with this goal. And I'm give you a real life example that'll really bring it home. The first is getting clarity, knowing exactly what it is that you desire, what it is that you want. Because the clarity is what is going to define the actions you take. It's going to define the entire step, all the steps that you take after that. But you need to know what you want first. Secondly, self-accountability or accountability from someone else. You need to commit and you need to be hungry. You need to really, really want that desire. Otherwise, you're going to allow yourself to slip up. You're going to give yourself excuses. And then number 3, you need to set a date. You need to set a time frame. As I had mentioned with clarity, you need to have a time frame to know when you have to do certain tasks, by when. If you give yourself a time period of 4 months to achieve a goal, the action is going to be very different than if you gave yourself 5 years. So let me tell you about my espresso journey. I was brewing my my bottled espresso cold Roman, and while I was brewing, I was listening to an audiobook. I was listening to the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And in that book, they were talking about definiteness of purpose and committing to a time frame. And while I was listening to that, I said, you know what? I had been wanting to make an Italian espresso blend for literally my entire life. Since I started my career, that has been one of my goals. So while I was sitting there brewing, I said, you know what? I'm going to commit. I'm going to make this a reality. And I am going to do it by April of next year. So April of next year, I didn't know how. I knew what I wanted. I set the time, but I didn't know how I was going to do it. So fast forward, I started thinking, well, all right, well, how can I close this gap? How can I create this espresso blend? Right? I want to create an Italian espresso blend. I don't know of any roasters here in the United States that can do that because I've spoken to many of them, and I've never tasted an authentic Italian espresso roasted by anyone in the United States. So the obvious answer was to look in Italy. But there was a challenge there because there's the whole language barrier. So like, how do I find the person to guide me? So I called different roaster manufacturers, and I started to kind of just get my bearings as to like, well, how would I go about doing this? Looking for answers, right? I knew what I wanted. I want to create that espresso blend. I knew that I wanted to do it by April. I gave myself the deadline of April. And now I had to do was create the action plan for it. So I spoke to a bunch of different people and I identified one person that could help me. I called them up and I got in touch with them. They sent me a proposal. And all of a sudden I didn't hear back from them. And so I started to feel, like this goal was outside of my control. And I started to get nervous and going back and forth. Like, what if it doesn't work? There were many things flooding my mind. And so months went by of going back and forth where I didn't have a definite answer or a date as to when I was going to be working with this consultant. And I had the option, right? The option was I could look for another consultant, right? But I was committed. I wanted to work with this one because I had spoken to some of my friends in Italy who were working in the industry. So like, this guy here, he is the best of the best. He's the number one in Italy. I was like, all right, well, this is the person I have to work with in order to create my espresso blend. It's a must. But this person's schedule was very, very busy. He's working all around the world. And as a result, trying to commit to give me the dates so I could put in my own schedule, I just kept going back and forth with his receptionist, and it was getting nowhere. Months went by, and I started second guessing myself. And I was like, well, all right, well, what do I do? Like, I committed to April, and I had this I had a lot of internal pressure that I was putting on myself to have this result by April. And so I was getting a little nervous, and there was a lot of things going on the inside. On the inside, I was committed. I wanted to have this one consultant because my friend said he was the best. This is the person I want to have. And so in my mind, I was getting fearful. I'm like, well, what if I have to choose a different consultant? What if they're not as good? What if I don't get the result I want? What if I go there and I just waste my time and money? And then there was the fear of just spending the money, because it's not a small expense to go there to work with one of the best in the world, and then fly there to Italy for a few days. I'm likely going to extend my trip and then come back. I was worried about what I was going to be spending on this trip as well. So all of these things going around in my head. Plus, I hadn't heard back from him, so I couldn't control that aspect. Like I had no control. And this went on for months. And then until finally I was looking at my deadline, like, all right, April is only a few months away now. How am I going to make good on this goal that I set for myself? And so I got serious about it. I contacted the receptionist, and I reached out to the consultant directly because I had his direct information, his number, but I was trying to maintain, to work through his receptionist who planned his schedule. And I said, listen, I need to know, you need to give me dates. I need to plan. Otherwise, I'll work with somebody else. Just let me know either way. He ended up getting back to me, and we ended up putting a date on the calendar. And it was none of the things that were going on in my head. I was like, oh my God, he doesn't want to work with me. Maybe he's upset with me. All these excuses were as to why maybe I wasn't hearing back from him or floating in my head, and none of them were true. None of them were true, right? He's just extremely busy, which I understand. But it wasn't until I literally put that line in the sand, and I was willing to look at other resources to get me to my goal. Thankfully, this one worked out, but I had a list of other people that, like, listen, if this doesn't work, then I'll do this. If they don't work, I'll do this. So I gave myself options. And as a result, now I am on the books. I'm going to be going to Italy in April. I'm going to be working with this consultant on creating my espresso blend, which I'll then bring back here and start making many, many people happy with my authentic Italian espresso. And so one of the things I want you to come away with is to take a mental note right now. Look at the goals you've had in the past. Like, where have one of the results that you wanted eluded you? And then look at the 3 lessons I told you. Like, One, how clear were you on that result? If you can't picture it, if it wasn't something that you were able to feel, then chances are you were not clear at all. Two, did you make yourself personally accountable? Right? Did you say, I am going to do this and I am committed to doing this? Or did you let yourself off the hook? And then third, did you set a definite date? Did you say, I will do it by this date? Because you need all three of those in there in order to make that deadline. And you don't have to have accountability. If you know what, I haven't been self-accountable lately. Find someone else to hold you accountable and stack the chips in your favor. By what I mean by stacking the chips in your favor is do something that's going to make you follow through. Maybe telling a friend, hey, can you hold me accountable for this? All right, yeah, sure. And they make you accountable. And by just reminding you, and you're like, oh yeah, I didn't get to it today. And you know that you're going to slack off. But if you tell your friend, listen, hold this $1,000. If I don't follow through on this, you get to keep it and spend it on whatever you'd like. You're going to be like, oh my God. So now it's stacking the chips in your favor because now you're like, man, I really got to follow through. I don't want to lose this $1,000 to my friend who's going to probably go gamble it on nightlife and strippers. No, I'm just joking there. But stack them in your favor. So this way you will follow through because we all need accountability for our goals. Some people are very strong in the personal accountability, which is literally just a muscle that you have to exercise. But sometimes you need it from the outside, right? Especially if the goal is scary. Get the accountability. So this way you can follow through and then make sure you have a time frame. That was the third point I want you to journal on. What was your time frame? Like, did you set a person a date or did you just throw the date out to be to random that the gods will figure it out one day when it happens? Because the chances of that happening are likely nil. Not that it can't happen, but wouldn't you want to speed up the result if you could, right? If you could have the result in 1 year versus 20 years, wouldn't it be beneficial to set that date? So this way you have like a clear plan as to what exactly you have to do in order to attain that. So I wrote down a couple little things I want you to kind of put it into your mind. Is that your vision informs your actions, right? Whenever you are getting ready to partake or move towards something that you desire, just ask yourself, how clear am I about what I am going for, like about what my desire is. If you're not clear, trying to get a little bit more clarity. Sometimes clarity is what we develop in the process of going in a direction that we know we want. But get as clear as possible and then start taking action. Secondly, that you can count on accountability. Say, I can count on accountability. I can count on accountability. I can count on accountability because when you have accountability, you're going to follow through. And the last thing I want to share with this is just like, this thing has been a desire of mine, as I had mentioned, was something I'd want to do since I first started out in my coffee career. Early on, I knew I wanted to do Italian espresso. I'd loved Italian espresso, but I didn't know the right process of replicating that here in the United States. It's a different roasting process than what they do here in America. I've spoken to many of the best consultants here in the United States. And I'm like, what do you know about Italian espresso? They're like, nothing at all. Meanwhile, they are amazing at creating roasts for American style coffee. As it turns out, for espresso, not so good at it. So the most beautiful part of this entire experience was realizing that I am bringing one of my biggest desires, a goal that I've had for my entire life, to fruition, that it's now coming true, and it all because I decided. So in closing, I want you to think of a goal. What is it that you want to decide on? What is it that you are going to take action on? Right? Write down, just take one project, take one thing that you want in your life. Write down a piece of paper. Next, what is it that you want about that? Try to picture it as clear as possible, and I want you to capture in as much detail as possible what it is that you are going after, why you're going after, what life is going to look like once you attain that thing. Third, set a date. When do you want to buy? You can say by 10 years out, but that's going to lack emotion, right? If we're looking at things that are 10 years out, it's going to be hard because it's so far out that sometimes you don't have the emotion because you're like, well, I'll think about it, in 5 years. Pick something that's going to be in the short term. When I say short term, not like within a year, although you could do in a year, but within like the next year or two, because it's close enough where it'll allow you to get clarity and to build that excitement and anticipation of achieving it. And then the last thing you have to do is, once you've fully committed, once you have the accountability, start looking at the action. What actions are you going to take in order to make this a reality? So I hope this inspired you to just pick up some of those dreams that you let fall by the wayside because you know what? It didn't happen in the past and probably not going to happen. No, pick them back up. If you still have that desire, right? If you think about it and it still brings you joy, then it's something that is still written on your heart. And I want you to stay with that and just bring it back to the forefront and imagine the possibilities of what if. Like, what if you were to commit? What would happen? How would that change your life? Because it's not just your life that's going to change by going after those things. You're going to change the other people's life because when they see what you're doing, when they see the action you're taking, it inspires other people. So that is all I've got for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you did, please hit that subscribe button and leave some comments on the episodes. It helps tremendously. Plus, it makes me feel good because I know that my words are reaching people and it's making a difference. So that is all I've got for you guys today. If you have any questions, you can send them to me via my website at www.donnyrouse.com. Again, DONNYRAUS.com. That is all I got for you guys today. Remember, you only get one life. Live fully, live passionately, and most of all, live now. God bless you guys, and I will see you again soon.